This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by Alex Barth.
That's a fit. That's a match.
No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
The thing I hate about people complaining about the tush push, you don't like it because you can't stop it. There's a way to stop the tush push. Don't let the Eagles get to 3rd and 1. Some people say there's injury concerns. All the data suggests that there's no injury problems. There's a lower injury rate. And then there's it's not a real football play. You might want to look up the history of the sport, where it has its roots. You want to beat the good teams?
Great.
Get better. Don't ask the league to stop them for you.
That was a good take by you on the tush push.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't give you a lot of compliments on your takes. So there you go. You know it's genuine when I rarely do that. Hello, everybody. Evan Lazar, Alex Barth. Patriots Catch-22. Next couple hours talking Patriots OTAs. We literally just walked from the practice field into the radio studio as practice was wrapping up for the Patriots here on this Wednesday. So we're going to get into all of our takeaways. We'll start the top of the show with that. We'll take your lovely calls and emails as well as the show goes on here, but we'll open with the show with just our general thoughts on this practice. And I would say the big storyline from last week was the interceptions by Drake Maye during the open practice to the media last Tuesday, right? Was it Tuesday or Wednesday last week?
Yeah.
Today's Wednesday, so I think it was last Tuesday. That Drake Maye had that 4 interception practice heard around the world. That was a big story. Interception-free practice for Drake Maye today. That's always a positive. There weren't any turnovers. There was a time when the ball hit the ground on a aborted snap, but frankly, it happens really quickly, and there's no film to go watch back. So I'm not sure if that was a center quarterback issue, is a quarterback center exchange issue. Let's just put it to you that way. But no interceptions. That's a positive.
Yeah.
I still thought, though, in general, and look, it's May, like we always say. It's May 28th. It's a long way away from even padded practices, let alone the season or preseason. But there was still a general feeling of maybe uncertainty or just inconsistency that I saw from Drake Maye in the number one offense, where it still felt a little bit clunky at times. There were some high throws. There was some holding of the ball. Doesn't always seem like he's 100% sure what he's looking at just yet. So good news, it's turnover free. Thought he had some moments today that he maybe didn't have last week in the positive direction that we can break down. But in general, I still feel like we're in those early days of a transition right now.
Yeah, he just looked unsure at times, which is the best way I could put it. Not all the time. He did get in a rhythm there at one point midway through practice, and really it was Hunter Henry that kind of helped get him through it, which, duh, right? It's his favorite receiver. So, but just, yeah, it's clearly still a feeling out process for him.
Yeah, there was one pass, over the middle of the field to Henry that he was just a little bit early and maybe a little bit high to it that went incomplete, and that's one that you're used to seeing Drake Maye make in his sleep, and so there was some of that. Maybe not the turnovers, which were catastrophic turnovers that we saw at times, but maybe more so that. On the positive side, I thought what you saw a little bit today when he started to settle down or settle in was some pocket movement and bouncing around the pocket a little bit, some of that off-platform stuff that we have grown to love here from Drake Maye. So there's some of those elements to it as well. Honestly, from an offensive standpoint, from a scheme standpoint, I don't want to give too much away or go in too much detail about the scheme, but so far it just feels like the Josh McDaniels install. Like, I haven't seen, there's a lot of talk about McDaniels going to college programs and maybe adding things or innovating his offense or updating his offense, whatever word, adjective you want to use to describe it. So far we've seen a lot. They've done a lot, which I think is always a McDaniels staple. McDaniels will have everything in his bag. And they have done some outside zone, maybe like more than I was expecting, and some moving pockets as well, which I think is good. That type of stuff, even though the Patriots haven't necessarily been overly successful with that over the last couple of years, in theory, it fits Drake Maye's skill set really nicely to have the pocket move and get him out on the perimeter and on the move and cut the field in half and make throws on off platform or on the move. That's him. Like, that's when I think Drake Maye is at his best and when he feels the most comfortable. So I think those are all good things that they've done schematically, but at the same time, and again, it's probably too early to be having these conversations. This is basic install time of year. I haven't necessarily gone out at this practice and said this is a totally different offense, right? It's still Josh McDaniels' system. They're still running a lot of the same things that they were running here in the past. So in that sense, I don't know if we're really going to see this grand unveiling of this hugely different offense. But what's been your impressions just of what they've been doing from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we kind of wondered how much of it was going to be, and this is early and they're in the early stages of install, like you said, but
yeah,
it's Josh McDaniels. Like, there's some new wrinkle-ish things in there. It's not the Brady offense, certainly, but it's you wouldn't look at this and be like, I wonder who's designing this. Like, it's a Josh McDaniels designed offense, very clearly, and they'll work wrinkles in here or there, but like we see them using a fullback, right? That's textbook Josh McDaniels. A lot of different packages. It's not, and maybe some of this is just the install and trying to go through as much as they can, or maybe it'll translate to the season. But we've seen this a lot when McDaniels is the OC. It's not the same 5 skill position players out there snap after snap after snap. There's a lot of moving parts, and some of that is, again, you're working different guys in because of depth, but going from 11 to 21 to 12, like they're given a lot of looks.
Yeah. So the other big picture takeaway offensively, then we can go over to the defense and then break down individual players from there. The other big picture takeaway I had offensively was just watching some of the things, and again, I want to try to not give too much away here, but just watching some of the things that they've been doing with Trayvon Henderson in these practices feels exciting to me. It feels as though they are going to try to turn Trayvon Henderson into a featured scheme touch player.
Yeah.
And instead of doing they tried this in 21 with Jonnu Smith and it didn't really work. But Trayvon Henderson is a much different
skill set.
Yeah, much more explosive, much faster player, much smaller player.
Better
right?
hands.
Right, just a totally different player from Jonnu Smith. Different position, different everything. So they had some packages that I thought were unique where, they're using Trayvon Henderson in some different ways. And that to me is exciting. Now, the flip side of that is you don't want to force feed it, which I thought in 21, because they gave him the big contract and he was a big free agent signing for them, that they kind of force feeded it a little bit at times with Jonnu Smith, where they were just trying really hard to make Jonnu Smith happen, right? We just paid this guy, we just gave him this money, we're going to try to make him happen. I don't want to see that with Trayvon Henderson necessarily, but what I'm getting at is when they drafted him, I felt this way, and what I've seen the last couple of weeks in these first 2 practices, it kind of confirms it. This to me is more than just like a traditional running back. Like when you draft a guy like, Genty or Omarion Hampton or something, like you're drafting a traditional running back. The way that I view how they have shown us at least a little bit with Trayvon Henderson is that he is going to be used as a true gadget scheme touch player on a lot of different instances where he is going to line up in some different places that isn't necessarily the backfield. He might even line up with another running back on the field. Like they might really embrace pony packages, but it's not even like true pony because Henderson's kind of being used flexed out like as a receiver and from a different alignment. So that is exciting to me that they see Henderson as someone that can do that. Then you can obviously build things off of that where he's a decoy and he's not necessarily the one that's getting the ball, but let's say they give him a jet sweep, they get him out in space, they make a positive play out of it. Well, now you can show the jet sweep and you can run action off of it, and then you're out here and now you're hitting the defense at a different point of attack. He's really impressed me in these practices with his speed, obviously, and that we kind of knew was going to be apparent with Trayvon Henderson. But the usage of him is different. Like I don't think it's when we try to compare him to backs in this role in the past, the James Whites, the Shane Vereen's, the Kevin Falks, like this feels a little bit different to me than what they did with those guys.
Yeah, it almost feels kind of Deion Lewis-ish, but he's a better receiver. Like Lewis didn't have that receiving. No, he wasn't as nearly as polished a receiver as Henderson.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna have one role. And the other thing is we know, and it changes with some guys, but traditionally, Josh McDaniels does not throw everything out there with a young running back, right? It is a slow burn. It is a slow buildup with these young running backs. And I think even if Henderson is still involved early, more than the traditional like young running back would be, it's good. His role is going to build over time. So whatever we're seeing from him now, my guess is going to be more built into what he's doing by week 1. And even in week 1, 2, and 3, I would think the role is going to build further from there as the season goes on.
And it's also some of the things that they're asking him to do now, like the traditional running back stuff that you're talking about, that they've had slow burns with rookies. A big part of that is reads, like reading your run fits and things like
Pass
that.
pro, which we know Henderson is good at.
Right. But if you, some of the things that they have shown that they've done in some of these practices are a lot more straightforward than that. Like a jet sweep's a jet sweep, right? Like if he's going in motion and he's either taking the ball or he's a decoy, like you're not reading anything per se. Like that's just being an athlete. Like you're just getting put in a foot race and you're being an athlete. Like those are the types of things that maybe you can do a little bit more early on as a rookie that isn't as mentally taxing as being like a 3-down back would be. So that's those things you can do with him right off the bat, even if he's not mentally all the way caught up in terms of being able to be a featured back as like a true tailback out of the backfield. Let's talk a little bit O-line. I thought, on this, it's non-padded practices, and I try not to put too much stock in line of scrimmage play and non-padded practices, but I spent a little bit of 11-on-11s today watching Keon White versus Will Campbell, which I thought has been the matchup pretty consistently in all of these 11-on-11s that we have seen, and is kind of the type of guy that in theory might give Will Campbell some problems. It's a big, long, powerful edge rusher with a good first step, and there's a size disadvantage there in terms of length with Will Campbell and with Keon White. He did get him clean on one move. Keon did, on a beat his two-hand swipe, kind of just dipped underneath it, which we've seen a little bit on film at LSU from Will Campbell. But they're going back and forth, right? Like there's some holding of their own there. And then at left guard, it's just been kind of a mystery box. I feel like at this point that Mike Vrabel might be toying with us to try to keep track of all of these different combinations. I think it was Tyrese Robinson out there for a lot of practice today, which no disrespect whatsoever to Tyrese Robinson. I just don't know if that's going to necessarily hold by the time we get to August. But they're trying out a lot of different people at that left guard position as of right now, and it really does feel like that spot is a completely open competition.
Yeah, it looks wide open, and there's still some guys that are probably working their way back from injury and things like that. But these are, we talked about Layden Robinson, we talked about City So, who was here today after not having, he wasn't here the last open practice we saw. All right, now I'll actually be able to get my thoughts straight. Yeah. Drink some water, which I did. We talked about Jared Wilson at that left guard spot. We didn't talk a lot about Wes Schweitzer. We didn't talk a lot about Tyrese Robinson.
Yeah,
it's wide open. It's anybody's game to win. And my guess is behind closed doors, it's probably a different guy every day or every other day. And maybe Cole Strange had his day. Maybe Layden Robinson had his day. Maybe City So had his day, but he was on the right side today. And it's just to kind of set the stage for camp. They're going to get everybody filled in as much as they can, and then when the competitive portion begins, when the pads come on in camp, it's game on.
Yeah, I am curious to see behind closed doors. You mentioned that maybe it's rotating, and we don't know obviously what's happening in those closed practices, but at least in the two open practices, Layden Robinson hasn't necessarily been at the front of the line. And I just wonder how this staff, McDaniels, Vrabel, view Layden Robinson, because I felt about Layden Robinson coming off his rookie year similarly to how I felt about City So coming off his rookie year, which was that they did some nice things, did some good things. There's a long way to go, but you could see a skill set there that maybe could project into a starter eventually, and build up to that. We haven't seen Leighton Robinson be too heavily involved, especially with like the quote unquote starters. So it'd be interesting to see if that changes as we go on here. I was surprised, as I'm sure a lot of people were, that Tyrese Robinson got a crack at it today. I didn't have that on my bingo card as somebody that would be heavily in the mix. It is interesting that Cole Strange has been getting some run at right guard, which I guess maybe they're looking at him and saying, well, if he doesn't win the starting job, can he be a 3-position backup? Can he back up both guard spots and center and make himself valuable that way? I'm still waiting, and we haven't seen Jared Wilson do much in these 2 practices. I don't know what it is that he's that's holding him back, but we haven't seen him do much. I'm still waiting to see if Jared Wilson gets in there and starts making a push. Like I feel like, I know we've talked a lot about him being a center long term, and that probably being his most natural position is playing center, but it still feels to me like that's probably their best 5 just talent wise on paper. Like the group that has the highest ceiling would be Campbell, Wilson, Bradbury, Onwenu, Moses. Like that feels like the most talented 5 linemen that they have currently on the roster, but that would mean putting Jared Wilson at guard and not his natural position like center. So the offensive line, like I said, I'm not going to look too much into these non-padded practices for the lines of scrimmage and things like that, but that's some of the things that we saw out there today. Moving on to the receivers, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. Speed receiver in Maye, but Kyle Williams probably had the highlight of the day for the offense on a go ball from Josh Dobbs. Caught it over his shoulder. Nice adjustment coming back to a ball that was like outside, one of those like contort the body type of catches. He has flashed. He gets open. Now, him and Trayvon Henderson in this setting should be flashing. They're 2 really explosive, fast, quick twitch, good movers at skill positions that should flash this time of year. So I'm not starting to print out the Kyle Williams red jacket just yet or anything like that, but through 2 practices I've seen him get open more than his fair share of times. Let's put it that way.
Look, I'll say this, that just little breaking news, which I think you were probably aware of. The Patriots are going to honor David Andrews at the retirement press conference on Monday.
Oh yeah.
So the team just tweeted that out. So I guess congratulations to David Andrews on his retirement. The thing with Kyle Williams, to me, we can get more into that later. We should get more into that later.
Yes.
The thing with Kyle Williams, to me, is he's out there on the field a lot. He's involved a lot, which isn't always the case for a rookie this early. So whatever they're seeing, they're liking because they're giving him more opportunities. So it is that massive caveat of non-padded practice and all of that, but clearly he's doing something that the team wants to see him doing because they continue to put him out there on the field with the top unit.
Yeah. I look at Kyle Williams, and I just like what I like about him is that he just has that ability to get open on the outside. And they just haven't really had that. Now it's different. He's not a big body receiver. He's 5'10", 190. We're not talking about him getting open on the outside on high points and back shoulders and using physicality and things like that. It's separation, and it's really quickness at the line of scrimmage. Like he beat Battle clean just right off the line of scrimmage. That wasn't late in the down, third phase of the route that we're running by somebody. That was just we're right by him at the line of scrimmage. So that's not something that they've had in a while, and I think that versatility can really be unlocked in a Josh McDaniels offense, where this is a guy that's skill set, we've talked a little bit about Brandon Cooks, more lends itself to like the Cooks, Deion Branch, like that type of archetype than like a true outside guy. And they've tried so hard to find, going back to like N'Keal Harry and whatever, like to find that big body outside X. And maybe this system just isn't meant for that. Like, unless you're Randy Moss, right? Which is just Hall of Famer.
You show me a system that isn't a fit for Randy Moss.
Yeah.
I'll show you a bad system.
Right, like maybe it's just this system though, and we're talking about mere mortals that aren't Randy Moss.
Right.
It's not necessarily meant for that. It's meant more for the separators. It's more for the 4.4 speed and the good separation and the good release and all that kind of stuff. So I'm cautiously optimistic about what we've seen from Kyle Williams. The other receiver that I don't think is necessarily getting a ton of talk out of these practices just because he's been around, he's a veteran, that you can see the confidence in having played in this system is Kendrick Bourne. Like,
he looked good today.
Like Kendrick Bourne, I just feel like it knows where the spots that he's supposed to be in. He knows the system probably better than just about anybody he's on the field with at this point.
He should. He's been in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's just confident, it's crisp because he has been there and done it. So I'm not ready to write Kendrick Bourne off. I don't think anybody is, but we've talked a lot about him being sort of on that bubble potentially as like the 5th or 6th receiver, and could he be the odd man out to a younger player that's cheaper and that's recent draft pick, those types of things. I'm not ready to go there yet with Kendrick Bourne. I think he's got too much. He's got just too much experience and too much savvy within this offense that maybe he's still going to be around a little bit.
I mean, I think there are people that are writing him off. And as I've said, like, don't. People want to talk about Kayshon Boutte. People want to talk about Javon Baker. Who's going to get that last spot? Kendrick Bourne has to be in the mix. We've seen what he can do in this offense. I understand that was 3 years and a knee injury ago. I get that. It's not a perfect situation, but he looks confident in this offense. He has chemistry with Drake Maye. He's going to be a factor here. He's going to be a factor. At the very least, he's going to make a strong push for the roster. Maybe they ultimately decide they just want to get younger. That's probably the biggest thing working against him is I believe it's going to be his age 30 year, right? I think he's 29 now, but he turns 30 in the summer.
He's had a major injury and and the contract is a factor.
He turns 30 in August, so that's probably the biggest thing working against him, but he knows this offense. He can succeed in this offense, and he can succeed with Drake Maye.
So a couple more things on the receivers. Jalen Polk still off to the side doing routes on air with an offensive assistant. That probably stems, we're speculating just to be clear, but that probably stems from the injury at the end of last season. He's not all the way back for...
his shoulder, right?
Yeah, he's not all the way back for full team stuff yet. He's been doing everything else, just not the full team periods. But he's off to the side doing routes on air and going pretty hard. Like, I'll give him credit for that, right? Like, I know it's routes on air, and I'm not like sitting here telling you that it's breakout season incoming.
A lot of guys just kind of walk through the rehab stuff.
Yeah,
and
looks like he's taking it on with the right attitude.
Yeah.
But it did stand out to me, at least, and I think we were talking about this during practice, that as they were going down the depth chart and getting 1s, 2s, 3s circling in there, it did stand out to me that Javon Baker was near the back of the line. Now, maybe we shouldn't look too much into depth charts in May, and all that is fair, but what do you think about, you'd always tell me to look at like who's playing and when, right?
Yeah.
And when Javon Baker is out there and Ben Woolridge is the quarterback that's throwing him the football, it's just notable that he's out there with those types of guys.
Baker's the one guy that's working with all three quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like, he's all over the place, which tells me they're really unsure maybe of what they have in him.
Yeah.
And by them, I mean the coaching staff. Elliot Wolf obviously is still here. He drafted him, but they want to try him in different roles. They want to try him in different combinations and see what's going to happen. So I think it's like anything's possible with him. I saw some people talking about Mike Vrabel walked off the field with him after practice, and the two were chatting.
Yeah.
Like, he's made some great catches in this camp. They've come against guys who probably aren't going to make the team, and they've come on the field with a lot of guys who probably aren't going to make the team. So he's making some plays, but at a certain point, what we'll be telling is, all right, does he lose those Woolridge reps, get more with the first team, and then can he contribute as consistently? Consistency's been a problem for him. So when you see him kind of making big plays against those lower units, you're not seeing him pop as much with the top unit. That's where you wonder, all right, like, is he turning a corner? Or is this just, he's an NFL caliber player. He's better than some of these guys that are brought in for camp.
Right.
But when you have just other guys on the roster who have a stronger case to make the team, he still needs to do more.
Well, the big throw that he caught down the field was an obvious push-off. That would have been a complete OPI. I mean, he just literally tossed the guy to the ground. Like that would have been an OPI. But he runs a nice in-breaker, like a nice dig route, at the second level. We've seen him do it a little bit even last year, especially in the preseason. It was one of Drake Maye's first in rhythm, in structure throws that he made. I want to say it was against the Eagles in the preseason, backside in cut. He runs that route pretty well. So there's still some juice there. And I watched Javon Baker, and I'm like, this guy's got juice. He's got talent. Like, you can see he's got explosive movements if he can just kind of put it all together. But unfortunately, for a lot of guys that are drafted where Javon Baker is drafted and have similar stories, that's always their story, is he just never really was able to put it all together. And that's just kind of the world that Javon Baker is in right now. A couple more notes on offense for me, and then I'll, if you have any leftovers. Afton Chisholm still running with the second unit, but still looking pretty smooth out there. Still catching passes. Wrote his number down a couple of times. Yeah. You mentioned smoothness. Those little jump cuts that he does in the open field are kind of nifty. The one thing that you watch with him on the tape with Eastern Washington, he just doesn't have a ton of burst with the ball in his hands once he gets into the open field. He's not going to outrun or run away from anybody, but he's got that short area quickness, and he's got some jump cut ability. And my guy Lan Larison just catching all the checkdowns. Yeah. Again, with backups against backups, but checking those boxes this early in camp. It'll be interesting to see, at what point do we see maybe Chisholm start to elevate a little bit on the depth chart, or Larison start to elevate a little bit on the depth chart. But those two guys, I thought, did the same thing they did last week, which was when their opportunities presented themselves, they were noticeable on the field, especially Chisholm. Chisholm's been noticeable in both these practices.
Yeah, when do those guys move up? I think that's probably something we get to more in the summer once the pads come on. They're on the right track. They're on the right trajectory. I just don't think these are the kind of practices where you're making that kind of move, but
yeah,
they're both doing what they need to do. They're both absolutely doing what they need to do.
Anything else on the offense stand out to you?
Morgan Moses was
a little bit more
relatively full participant. I don't think he did 100% of the team reps.
Yeah.
That top unit was out there, but he did none last week. So he's trending in the right direction. That's good to see.
He had a knee surgery.
Right, yeah, he's working back from something. Yep. We knew and I think he said that last week.
Yep.
Talked about Kyle Williams. Jaheim Bell had a really nice catch today.
Yeah, it did.
Jaheim Bell made a nice diving, sliding catch. Craig Woodson was all over him. It was good coverage. Dobbs underthrew it a little bit. I think he'd probably try to lead Bell away from coverage, and it just turned into an underthrow. But Bell adjusted, made a play on the football. Hooper wasn't out here today.
Yeah.
So we got to see a little more CJ Dupree, a little more Jaheim Bell. Jack Westover looking like he's still squarely in the mix for a roster spot. Mm-hmm. So got to see a little more of those guys today. I would say Jaheim Bell did a good job with his opportunity.
Drake Maye is starving, and not that Hunter Henry can't do this, but he loves to throw the seam. He loves two routes. He loves the seam, and he loves a nice sail route, right? A corner flag, into the sideline with the outside receiver clearing it out. He loves those two routes. And Jaheim Bell, even though he's not necessarily that traditional inline wide tight end, there's a lot of evidence on his college tape of him stretching the seam and being able to make those types of plays down the field as a receiver.
He does it more from the slot than traditionally inline.
Right.
But
and so he can do that. He can do that sort of thing. And just when you watch these practices, that's really, and if I had to say my most positive, I guess, outlook about this offense with Josh McDaniels is that McDaniels is very good at accentuating the middle of the field, and Drake Maye is very good at accessing the middle of the field.
Yeah.
So those two guys together should marry up pretty well in that sense. I always see Drake Maye when he's going through progressions and things like that, he wants to throw the ball through the middle of the field.
He wants the tight end seam wants Bryson Nesbitt.
Yeah, he wants that tight end seam. Whoever can do that the best out of this group behind Henry and Hooper are obviously going to be here. I think has a really good chance to make this team. And as we move forward, we were talking about this a little bit at practice, and I know this is getting a little ahead of ourselves and away from the 2025 season, but we are a draft show. We are an off-season show. That's our wheelhouse. And as we move forward here, evaluating tight ends, trying to target tight ends in the draft that can stretch the seam and have that vertical juice to their game, I think is going to be something that we're going to talk a lot about in the 2026 offseason. Like, that seems like a skill set that they could really unlock with Drake Maye with the right guy. And we'll see if they can find that guy personnel wise. Moving over to the defense, there's again, you're not tackling anybody to the ground. There's not a ton of physicality for the defense out there, but the one consistent theme up front from the defense has been that 4-man defensive line. Like, that's clearly the unit that they want to roll out week 1 against the Vegas Raiders of Landry, Barmore, Williams, White. Like, those 4 guys have been consistently working together in all these practices. Every once in a while, Chazon will rotate in for Landry and get some run at that right or left, I guess, DN spot.
Well, they've both been on the field together at times too.
Like that unit though, those 4 guys together with Chazon, also kind of being that fifth. And maybe Tonga over the nose in some of their early down base
Tonga's
defenses.
just huge, man. He's so big. Just seeing him out there, you see him every time. Yeah. You can't miss him.
That group has been on the field a lot and pretty consistently throughout these practices. So the 2 takeaways I have from that are, one, it's pretty clear, and I will, like, I haven't been the biggest Keon White guy. I've kind of felt like he's a little bit of a tweener. Maybe Keon White's, like, not that he's a bad player by any means in the old system, and he wasn't a bad player. Like, he was probably one of their better defensive players last year, at least it's certainly at the beginning of the year. It looks more natural for him in this system already, playing with his hand in the dirt.
When he said that, he said he wants to play more. Like, he said that his first year, his biggest concern was, like, he didn't want to blow an assignment.
Yeah.
More than being worried about making a play, he didn't want to blow an assignment. So his assignment in this defense is to make plays.
This looks like a really good fit for him, and he's going to play more with his hand in the dirt. He's going to play close. He's not going to be all the way outside the tackle. He's probably going to be either head up or right outside the tackle, like in a 5 technique. And he just seems like he's being allowed to get up the field. Obviously, there's a lot of pass rush reps in a camp like this, where Vrabel's called it a passing camp multiple times. So you're going to see a lot of pass rush stuff. But I like what I've seen so far out of him. I think this is a good fit for him in this scheme. But those 4 guys have been pretty consistent on that defensive line.
Yeah, they have. I thought Joshua Farmer had a really good day today from that group up front. Broke up a pass line of scrimmage. Had another screenplay. He almost blew up. Even Anthony Jennings, who we talked about last week.
Yeah, I was going to bring him up next. Yeah,
he had a really good day. A couple of would-be sacks. Again, it's non-pads. You put as much stock into that as you want to, but they are deep up front, especially when it comes to the rushers. When it comes to guys on the edge, we've talked about them maybe need another tackle, but they have good depth on the edge, and that group got after it today.
I'm interested to see, I was going to bring up with Jennings because I thought he flashed a couple times today too. Definitely had one that would have been a sack.
One clean right away sack, and another that. And there were a few times too where they collectively collapsed the pocket, and it would have been a sack, but you don't look at that one and say this player stood out or that player stood out. It was just, all right, the pocket, they team meeting at the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Is the phrase.
So Jennings, it's interesting to me because he's clearly, Landry and Chazon are clearly at the top right now of that edge rusher depth chart. In wherever you want to put Keon White, you can put Keon White in that conversation. But those 3 guys are clearly ahead of Jennings right now. What's Jennings' outlook? Because I'm still trying to figure out exactly, and he made some good plays today, and maybe it can translate. Like, I'm still trying to figure out exactly where Anthony Jennings fits into this puzzle, because he's not really, the skill set is a edge setting outside linebacker. Stand up on your feet, set the edge of the defense against the run, play on first down. Like, that's the skill set, and that's just not really what they're going for now. They're really going more for up the field guys, playmaking type of guys. And I'm just wondering where Jennings fits into this whole thing, because he's still here. Him and Jelani Tavai are both still here. But both of them, but especially Jennings, because we've just seen him participate a little bit more, feel like an odd fit, or just don't feel exactly like what the players they've targeted. Landry Chazon, Swinson in the draft have a very clear body type and skill set that they are really redundant to one another in that type of way.
That's the thing. I think there's something to be said for you don't want necessarily a bunch of guys who are all redundant to one another. You want your starter, similar backups, so you don't have to change much schematically, but you have a bunch of pass rushers. You still want a guy that can come in there and stop the run.
Yeah.
You still want a guy you can put in there on early downs or in short yardage situations or late in a game, right? If you just build a team of primary pass rushers, you're going to get what the Jaguars did in London last year. They're going to run the ball 17 times in a row knowing you can't stop it.
Right.
So I think that's definitely Jennings' role. We'll see what happens with Tavai. He was limited today, but you need guys who can stop the run. You need guys who can stop the run. He can do it. And I think he gets underrated as a pass rusher. He's not Myles Garrett, but he can. He's not a sack guy. What he did really well at Alabama, and I don't think he was asked to do this enough here. Like he has a knack for getting in passing lanes and pushing the pocket back, and even if he's not shedding his blocker, doing a good job to get his arms up and make sure the ball can't get thrown by his ear. So I think he's just kind of a utility guy.
Yeah.
He can play, you can move him around. He can play a couple different spots. He can play in different situations. He's a good backup to have. He's a high-level backup, I think, at a bunch of different spots.
So they've played a little bit, they've played mostly a 4-down front, and they played a little bit of over, where they have 4 down guys and then one guy up on his feet at the end of the line of scrimmage. And obviously they're going to mix and match what fronts they use. And it's going to be game plan and situation oriented and all that good stuff. But I could see that being a spot for him on the strong side that could be a fit. I just don't know if I necessarily see him as like a hand in the dirt type of player. And for the most part, they've been 4 down with 4 guys with the hand in the dirt on the first level of the defense. And so where does Jennings fit into all of that? Moving back, I agree with you on Farmer, though. That was a good shout. I thought he had a couple of flashes today, or was a little bit more noticeable.
Really good day for the rookies as a whole. Good day for the rookie class
he's
today.
got an interesting build. He's got those long arms, right? You can see that. And but he's compact. Like, it's not like he's just like, he's not necessarily huge. In relatively speaking, of course,
right.
But he's got long arms and he's got like this compact frame. I'm trying to think of like a body type comparison, and I don't really have a good one. Like
he's kind of built like Barmore, isn't he?
I think there are some overlap there. Like if you look on like Mock Draftable and stuff like that, there's some overlap there with Barmore. I could see that. I think Barmore's a little bit bigger, but maybe that's just because he's older. And Barmore like 310, 320. Like
isn't Farmer like 310?
I don't know if he's that big.
Farmer at the combine, Wikipedia has him at 312.
Yeah, I don't know what he was at the combine.
6'3", 305.
Yeah, 305. We're talking, that's a big difference. We were going up to 315, 320.
Well,
like Christian
Barmore, isn't
Barmore.
Barmore 310?
I think Barmore plays closer to 320.
315.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe some Barmore there. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by him. The other guy that I thought was really noticeable today from the second level was Robert Spillane. Like Robert Spillane.
Guy flies around.
Now, I'll say this. I do not know if Robert Spillane was cheating the play a couple of times. It looked like Robert Spillane knew the play before it was called in the huddle. So there's a chance that they've been practicing against one another for 4 or 5 days now. Like maybe he's starting to pick up on some of the basic install of Josh McDaniels' offense. And he was really early to the ball a couple times where I was like, that was maybe a little bit too early. Like, are we going off cards here? Like, what's the deal, right?
Right.
So I don't want to put too much stock into those specific plays, but he's definitely got good play recognition, and he plays even faster than maybe like his athletic ability would suggest because of that. Because he seems like he's a half a step ahead of a lot of these plays at a lot of times. Like they kept on trying to get the ball outside, whether it was like swing passes to Trayvon Henderson or whatever, and Spillane was on the spot immediately on a couple of those. I jotted him down 2 or 3 times with tackles that were right on the line of scrimmage. So today I thought I saw the full Bobby Spillane. I saw a little bit more out of him today.
Yeah, he and that's kind of what you look for in these practices. Like obviously defensive players can't really make plays because they can't hit, but do you get to the right place at the right time? There were 2 guys we talked about today being in the right place at the right time. Spillane was one of them, and then Craig Woodson was the other.
Yeah.
He almost had an interception. He'd pick it off
over the middle. Yep.
Yeah, it was a high throw to CJ Dupree from Josh Dobbs, and he's half an inch taller. He probably picks it off.
Yeah, so he's been in the right spots. I think he's great not great's a strong word. I think his strength is probably playing as more of like a true zone defender. I know he can play man to man on tight ends, and he's done that a little bit at Cal. I didn't think it was bad coverage by any means on the throw he gave up to Jaheim Bell. Like, that was more of a good catch through some contact than like truly bad coverage. But the thing that hurts Woodson, I would say, in terms of his man-to-man ability against tight ends, he's got a little bit of a shorter upper body and shorter arms. So it's harder for him to kind of get into the catch point and make plays on the football when he is targeted. So I don't necessarily look at that and say that that's like the strength of his game is going to be tight end stopper. Like, they're going to put him up against pass catching tight ends. Where I think his strength of his game is playing in the middle of the field, whether it's rotating back into that free safety role or rotating into the shorter zone distribution as like a robber or a deep hook or something like that over the middle of the field. Both those spots, I feel like center field, split safety, and then underneath zone, he looks really comfortable in all those. And you mentioned the one over the middle of the field he almost picked off. Dobbs saw the window flash, was going to throw it there, and Woodson was just in the window. Like, he just read it well and sat right there in the window and forced Dobbs to airmail it. Otherwise, he was going to pick it off. So he's got a good knack to his game. He's got some good instincts. I was not overly high, like, to be totally honest. I was not overly high on that pick. I thought it was the one time where it felt like they maybe reached a little bit. There are some other safeties that I preferred, Billy Bowman going back to the draft. And they might have been right about Craig Woodson. Now, it's super early. Like, I'm not ready to crown him yet. But I can, watching him through two practices,
you see the vision.
You see the vision. You see the skill set. You see the talent there from the player. Maybe they might have been done a good scout on this guy. Like, I'm ready to give him some teeny bit of credit, because I'm not ready to give him any credit for anything, but just because it's early. But I see what they went for there with Craig Woodson. The other thing that stood out in the secondary, and this has been pretty consistent based off some of the other reporting that's been done, is Alex Austin playing a little bit more inside in the slot. Now, today Carlton Davis wasn't at practice, a veteran voluntary OTA, wasn't at practice. So maybe that just gave him the opportunity to go in this direction. But they've talked about Vrabel's introductory press conference, other press conferences, about the big slot and having a bigger body type in there than a Marcus Jones or a Jonathan Jones, who's no longer here. Maybe that speaks to that. So Alex Austin certainly fits the bill as somebody that has a little bit more size that can still play man coverage inside.
Yeah, and I thought it was notable that when they went with that look, Alex Austin stayed inside, and we saw Marcus Jones working on the boundary. So,
right. They want to get him some reps there.
I kind of interpreted that as, and maybe both ways. Maybe they want to get Marcus Jones reps on the outside, and they want to get Alex Austin reps on the inside. So even if Marcus Jones is going to stick around as primary slot corner, they don't have a clear backup.
Yeah.
So if Alex Austin can be your third boundary corner and your second slot corner, that's great durability. That probably saves you a roster spot somewhere else. Yeah. So good to see that.
Yeah. So that was that. What do we get from the kickers today, Alex? What do we get?
So Borregales missed one left. He missed pretty wide left from about 40. It was a little over 40. It's tough to see. They're going the long way. John Parker-Romo hit all four of his kicks. One of them was really close. Mike Reese actually confirmed with the member of the staff after practice that it was in fact good, because we weren't entirely sure. So
I love that's the hard hitting reporting right
John
there.
Parker-Romo 4 for 4, Borregales 3 of 4 with a miss wide left.
So I didn't track the makes and misses quite like you did. That's why I teed you up for that. I haven't. There has been some inconsistent hits, right? Like, am I wrong about that? Like, some of these that maybe are technically good haven't necessarily come clean off of either guy's foot. There's been some hooks. There's been some just mishits, I would say.
Yeah, I would say Parker-Romo has more. Borregales definitely had the one in that first practice that he didn't get square, but still hit it straight. Yeah, the one today, I don't know what went wrong there, but it was a pretty bad ball flight.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I still think it's Borregales, but
no punting.
John Parker-Romo today. They actually did do a couple of punts.
Oh, okay.
They did 3 punts at the very beginning of practice. I don't know if this was like truly live reps or a walkthrough, so I didn't put out the stopwatch times, especially because one of them he kicked relatively short. It looked like he was on purpose, set up a return. That one was 3.75 seconds. The other two hang times, I had 5.06. and then 5.51, which bounced out of bounds at the 6-yard line. That first one was a beautiful punt.
Wow. Beautiful punt. Beautiful punt. That really, that's your highlight of practice. Was
great punt. Why can't we give him credit? It's a great punt.
A 5-5 hang time from Bryce Behringer. Is that your highlight of the practice? I'm asking you seriously.
It's probably either the Kyle Williams getting off the line on the deep ball he caught against Miles Battle, or the Jaheim Bell catch. Those are probably the highlights.
That's fair. I think those are two good highlights. I would say Kyle Williams was probably the highlight of practice there as well. So that's your practice report for you. There's one other thing I want to get to that is obviously something that I have to be a little bit sensitive about, but it started out the press conference right away. It's a story. We can't really fully ignore it. And that was obviously the video of Stefan Diggs from over the weekend that's gone a little bit viral. I'll just say what Vrabel said, and then if you want to give a take, you can give a take. But he just said that we got to make good decisions, and I think that's a good line. Right? Like that's really what it is, right? It's whether it's in the facility or it's outside the facility, you just want to see the players making good decisions.
Yeah.
In any way. And he brought it back to practice and said, I hope that we make good decisions out here at practice in terms of football, the actual football. And then when we're away from this facility, I hope we make good decisions as well. What did you take it right off the jump? I give her credit, Karen Gregian, right off the bat, just first question about Stefan Diggs.
I mean, I thought that obviously Vrabel had the right answer. We'll say, I don't know how much more information is going to come out.
Yeah.
Like I know people debate what that is in the video that he has, but you can't confirm it, right?
No.
So I'd be surprised if this is something that becomes, maybe get some internal discipline, but I'd be surprised if this becomes like a much bigger thing than it is at this point.
Now,
Publicly.
all we're going off of in a different but similar thing is him posting videos of his workouts, which you never know, right? Like, that happens. Every athlete nowadays has their own social media channels and they're posting videos of his workouts. But if we're just basing off the information that we have of him posting those videos, he looks like he's really attacking this rehab and this return to play. And if his head is in the right place when it comes to football, then some of this other stuff is just kind of what you get with the big time receivers, with the highly paid wideouts. Like, we know that, right? It goes back generations that these guys are who they are from a personality standpoint. But from a football standpoint, we haven't seen him out there yet for these practices, so we haven't seen him with our own eyes. But we've posted on Patriots.com that has checked in and has been in some of these practices. There were pictures of him. I think it was over the weekend, right, that we posted of him at one of these practices, one of these OTAs. Might have been last Friday's practice that he was at. So he's been kicked around. He's been here. Been at a practice at least once from OTAs. He looks fantastic in some of these workout videos that he's posting. So I guess if I had to give a take on it, like I just don't really just be smart, but like I don't really care, right? Like if he comes in here and he's Stefan Diggs and he plays football and he's ready to go when he's cleared medically and all that kind of stuff, then what he does in his free time away from the facility is up to him. Who he dates, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like perform. Right? There's a lot of guys that have fun off the field and do what they want to do off the field. And if you show up and you play, you generally get a little bit more freedom with that stuff. If it starts impacting you on the field, that's another conversation, and we'll have that conversation if it does.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's practice. That's practice wrap up to start off the show. We'll open the phone lines here in just a second. The emails as well, if you want to email in at podcast@patriots.com. We'll read your emails. Before we open up the phone lines, the bad news is football isn't back yet. The good news, summer is upon us, and you can stock up on everything you need to kick back and relax with winning styles from Bob's Discount Furniture. Shop Bob's from the latest featured packed media centers made for summer movie nights, sleepover friendly sofas, and sectionals with built-in pop-up sleepers, and Bob's signature mattresses made with cooling technology to keep you feeling chill and comfortable. So stop in and spend your summer with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. A little long on the Bob's read, but the best one, like there wasn't any huge words or bad alliteration, so that was a clean Bob's read. Like sometimes we get ones that
just
are a little
throw the sales staff under the bus. There you go. Good job, Evan.
Sometimes there's ones that are a little clunky.
Way to bite the hand that feeds you.
This one was clean though, so good job, Bob's. Good job, everybody.
Our The sales guys 98.5 to break great reads. Great reads.
Yeah, I'm sure that they loved that part of the show. What do you think, Alex? Alex behind the glass. We have two Alexes, which is like a little confusing to me, honestly.
Well, let's not forget, we already had this debate, one of the shows where you weren't here. You were on the show, but I was hosting and I did the read. And what did we figure out? You're better at answering the phones and I'm better at doing the reads.
Yeah, exactly.
That's 100% true. But you're the radio guy amongst the two of us.
True.
So that makes sense. So you would be better at doing the reads.
I would hope so.
You also do like a lot more reads. Like I was on the air with you the other night.
Yeah.
And you guys like have the whole book and everything. Like you got to keep track of it all.
Three an hour during the week.
One take Barth.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be one take. It's live.
It's live.
Actually, the producer I have on Sunday mornings, Kyle Fabrizi, some of the other producers do it too. I think George did it the other night. It's like if we have, they'll record it. So if it lines up, they'll help you out. So, but you got to do it live at least once.
I like the ones where you guys are in a commercial and then you do a live read and then you go back to commercial. Because I always, when I was younger and didn't know how the sausage was made, I always wondered if those were truly live or if those were just like recorded.
Well, sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Not to peel the curtain back too far, but
that's what keeps everybody. You got to be on your toes. You never know.
That's the big money. If you want the on-air guys to read the ad instead of just having the voiceover guy do it, because it's the on-air voice, so people are more likely to stay tuned in, right?
Right. Because
they're used to that voice. That's how you make the big bucks.
There you go. That's
a little peek behind the curtain.
A little peek behind the curtain is right. All right, let's get to the phones. Lorenzo is in Virginia. What's up, Lorenzo? Lorenzo, you there? All right, call back in, Lorenzo. He was on hold for a while. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What's up, guys?
How we doing?
Doing all right today. A little stuffy, but I'm doing all right. I wanted to ask you guys a question about Drake Maye, and I tried to propose this. I tried to write this in yesterday on PU, but just realistically, do you guys think it's more probable than not that he has his breakout year next year as opposed to this year? And hear me out on this. He only had 2 years college experience starting. If you look at some of the guys that had the best rookie seasons, the two guys that come to mind most recently are Justin Herbert and last year Jaden Daniels. Both of those guys started at least 4 years. I know Herbert didn't start like all the games his first 2 years. And if you just count that to guys like Joe Burrow, I know he only started 2 seasons, but to me, like, Maye has more tools. Burrow's a much better processor. I mean, I think he's far superior as a processor, and I hope Maye gets to that point. But to me, it's just an experience thing. And I think, like, if, and Paul brought this up, I can't remember if it was yesterday, Evan, or Thursday on PU. I mean, this is 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years for him, too. So there's a lot that's being thrown at this guy. He doesn't have the experience, and he's got all the tools, and I hope he puts it together this year, but more realistically, like, I could see him having his breakout year next year, although I can see him improving. And I'll end on this. I wanted to see what you guys thought about that. Evan, why not jump around from House of Pain for the run-out song?
Okay. I can see that. We did this.
We've done this so many times. Jump around, come on.
You don't like Jump Around, Alex?
It's a good song, but like, come on. Let's do something new.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for the call, Patty. This was a big topic of conversation yesterday on Unfiltered. I know it got some love on the Sports Hub too, and I brought it up the other night. The run out music, people got takes on this. They got opinions. Jump Around, I think you're right. It's been done a little bit too many times. I agree with that. It's kind of like the cliche get the stadium excited song. The breakout season for Drake Maye. This goes back to a little bit of what we talked about last week for me. This is my one concern about what's going on around Drake Maye here. I think the world of Josh McDaniels as an offensive coordinator. I think he's a great coach, and I think he's a great OC. Maybe not a great head coach, but a great OC. And the concern that I had was the learning curve, and that's sort of what we're seeing now, where like the timing and the rhythm, it just doesn't seem smooth right now for Drake Maye. It still seems a little bit cumbersome and clunky. And at times, and look, Diggs isn't out there yet. You're still trying to get Kyle Williams up and running. but at times you still feel the lack of like a true game breaker and within the offense as well in these practices. And I know that a lot of people, I just quickly checked my Twitter mentions was always dangerous coming off a OTA practice. And there are some comments about how, the clunkiness or the unevenness of the offense, we just keep hearing this year and year out. And I get that. Like I sympathize with that. I think that's fair to say that. And the breakout year, however we want to,
define it.
Define that. Thank you. However you want to define that, between a new totally new coaching staff with a new offensive system and a new offensive coordinator, and the fact that they're still kind of building around him. They're going to have a rookie left tackle. They're really don't truly have that number one wide receiver unless Diggs like throws it back right to his Buffalo days and is that guy. So in general, like we might not be fully there, and it might not all be on Drake Maye. His rookie coaching staff wasn't the best it could have been. Then they had to change coaches. Now he's in a different system. Now the timing, the rhythm of it, at least early on in May, doesn't look great. It doesn't look smooth quite yet in terms of the processing and the post-snap stuff. And so, maybe there is a little bit more of a building up period here, especially early on, where he doesn't come out year two and make that immediate leap. Now, maybe by the end of the season he does, and that's what we're all hoping for. But I still have some of those same concerns, even though he didn't go out there and throw 4 picks again, with the timeline of how quickly this is all going to come together on offense. And I don't think that's all just because of Drake Maye. I think a lot of that has to do with, are they really going to be good enough at the skill positions to have him elevated, and all that kind of stuff? I think is a big factor as well.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I just think you got to see some sign of growth. Maybe the leap from year 2 to year 3 is bigger, but you need to see some sort of leap from year 1 to year 2. You don't want to see him be stagnant. That would be worrying.
There's a lot of praise going around right now for the Patriots offseason for Drake Maye. I saw Benjamin Solak on ESPN.
Had
a big post where he said he'd be just as excited about Drake Maye as Commanders fans are about Jaden Daniels. And I understand where Ben was coming from with that post, because if you look at the level of difficulty, like he wrote, Drake Maye is in an offense with an offensive coordinator that not a lot of people were crazy about, and Alex Van Pelt. He had the worst offensive line in football. He probably had a bottom 5, I should say, pass catching group, if not 32nd. Like, it might have been the worst pass catching group in the NFL last year as well. So the roster around him was not good. And he still went out there and made plays. And I feel like that's what we're seeing, though, from these practices, that there's still these moments. Like, he had a moment today where he just kind of tiptoes around some interior pressure, off platform, drops the arm angle, flicks it out there to a receiver on the move, and gets a nice play out of a play that probably should have been stopped in the backfield. But the big word for him has always been, even going back to North Carolina, is can he consistently do it? Like, he has these flashes of franchise quarterback potential and elite quarterback potential that we saw last year, that we see in these practices, but that's what it was at North Carolina too, right? It was kind of like, for every step forward, there was a step back, and for every good play, there was maybe a couple bad or not so good plays. And is he going to round out his entire game? I'm not trying to rain on parades or like trash Drake by any means, because everybody knows how I'm a Drake Maye guy, and I'm optimistic about Drake Maye. I just think some of the stuff that I've heard and read about the Patriots this offseason, especially from the national media, is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Like, can we see him do it first? Like,
well, so much of it is predicated, even like for me in the win project, I had 10 wins off the schedule, right? Like, that's predicated on Drake Maye taking some sort of year 2 leap. If he doesn't take a year 2 leap, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about doesn't apply.
I just see a lot of praise for Maye, for the offseason, for the coaching staff, and at the end of the day, like, they're going to have to go out there and actually do, like, this is all projection. Like, they're going to have to go out there and do it. And I personally, maybe it's because they've won 8 games over the last 2 seasons. Like, it's as simple as that I've been burned and I'm not ready to believe again. But let's just see it happen first before we get too crazy. All right, let's go back to the phones. Lorenzo's back. Lorenzo, what's going on?
Hello?
Hey, you're on the air. What's up?
All right, hey, man, thank you so much for letting me on. I just have a few questions, if that's cool with you guys. It's pretty quick. So, like, last year, when we faced man coverage, right, like, usually with Josh McDaniels, we used to, like, rub routes, pick routes, crossers constantly. Like, with AVP, we didn't really see any of that. I was wondering if you think that could return, because I know that our receivers couldn't separate, but you can kind of help with that by creating traffic. Second, how Josh McDaniels supposedly spent time around colleges. I was wondering if you think that there would be RPOs that aren't just quarterback option runs, kind of like how Miami does it, the 49ers do it, like motioning and creating space. And do you think Josh McDaniels changed from, quote, like a heavy game plan guy to more of a guy who's willing to adjust? Or do you think that if the offense struggles, it's because of the game plan, like strictly just execution? Because we know this is a big game plan offense. And can Kyle Williams get open in the middle of the field? Because we don't have guys who can do that. It's all like jump ball guys, inconsistent. And do you think Efton Chisholm can be like a quick, reliable safety blanket for Drake Maye? And that's about it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lorenzo. There's a lot of questions, but thanks for the call.
Yeah.
I think the first one about the scheme and like helping guys against man coverage, even though it wasn't, I don't remember exactly where they finished, but when Drake Maye first got in there last year, first starting games, they were actually efficiency-wise, they were really good against man coverage. A big reason why is because he was scrambling against man coverage, and so that advantage that they have now with man, and I would also say, just to give credit, like Pop Douglas is a pretty good man coverage beater in terms of receivers. He's quick. He's good at creating separation. He can get open. You know, I've talked in the past about some of the concerns I have with him against zone, but against man out of the slot, like Pop is a pretty good man coverage receiver in that respect. So they had Drake Maye scrambling. They had Pop Douglas in isolation, winning routes over the middle of the field. So they weren't a complete disaster from like an EPA standpoint against man coverage last year because of those two things. Now, they didn't do a ton of help. They were stagnant offense. They were like more, old school West Coast formationally and things like that. And McDaniels will certainly help with a lot of that. He's going to put receivers in stacks. He's going to put receivers in bunches. He's going to run pick plays. We've seen him run pick plays for years here. Crossers, pick plays, different alignments to get receivers off the line of scrimmage and away from press coverage. So he's certainly going to, all of that kind of stuff is, I would say, tenets or hallmarks of a Josh McDaniels offense. So they're certainly going to go in that direction and have all that in their bag. I would say that in a lot of ways that too lends itself to Kyle Williams, who in college was a really good first level separator on a lot of those types of routes, like slants and angles, and coming into a bunch of that big touchdown he scored against Syracuse was like a Josh McDaniels staple play that they're going to probably run a ton. So I think Kyle Williams getting open over the middle of the field is a big reason of why he's here. I think it's a big strength of his game, his catch and run ability, his ability to catch balls over the middle of the field, first of all, get open over the middle field, but then also transition into yards after the catch with the football. Those are two strengths, I would say. So if you marry those things together, that's what we're hoping we're going here. Like that's what you're hoping you're going to see out of this offense. I have some thoughts on the run game stuff too, but what do you think about this McDaniels offense from that standpoint?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot more of that man beater stuff. The other thing is a lot of the quick release routes with Van Pelt were more inside stuff. So some of those more quick release outside, some of those digs and things like that.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of it? Edelman in the Super Bowl on the goal line.
Oh, like a whip route?
Yeah, whip route. Thank you. I don't know. I couldn't think of that. I think we'll see more of that. Yeah, he's going to be helpful against man coverage to the point he made about, are they going to be more of a game plan offense?
Yeah.
Are they going to adjust? I think a game plan offense means adjusting.
Yeah.
So I do think they're still going to be.
Is this going to turn into a nerds versus?
No, it's really not. No, it's really not. I think they're going to be.
We had
flexible.
one of those at practice today, so
and we have one of those just about every day because the nerds are taking over. As Felger says, we have lost the war, but it doesn't mean I won't stop fighting. But
I mean, you could just like embrace it. Or,
no, but I won't. But I won't.
Or
That's the whole point. I won't.
Learn a little bit about
I will stick to my guns. But you made it about nerds on me. When it comes to McDaniels, I do think they are going to be a game plan offense. I don't think what we see week 1 is going to be what they are forever. I think they're going to attack different teams differently. They're going to hunt weaknesses. They're going to hunt matchups, things like that. Because at his core, that's what Josh McDaniels does. Josh McDaniels wants to get in the lab and pick an opponent apart. Yeah. His offense is more about what the defense does poorly than what his offense does well. And it's probably my favorite thing about Josh McDaniels. I love teams that operate that way. I love teams that operate that way on both sides of the ball. We talked about this when I had you on Monday night. Bad teams can't win. Good teams have a way to win. Great teams have multiple ways to win. Elite teams can win any way they want. Yeah. So I like teams that actually, and that's in any sport, it's just philosophy of mine, but I like teams that proactively go about making sure that even if they are really good at one thing, sometimes that one thing isn't going to be there for one reason or another. Maybe you just don't have it that day. Maybe the opponent has a strength in stopping that, whatever. I like teams that proactively going about make sure they have more than one ways to win. Josh McDaniels has always done that. Again, that's probably my favorite thing about his philosophy is that we are not going to be handcuffed into relying on one thing too much. We may have a preference. We may have something we lean on more, but we're never going to get caught without a plan B or a plan C.
So one of my favorite Josh McDaniels coaching moments during his time with the Patriots is the Super Bowl, the second Rams Super Bowl is at 53, right? So,
yes.
So they put together that game-winning drive at the end of the Super Bowl, and they couldn't move the ball all night long. Like, we all remember the game. They couldn't move the ball all night long. They've got nothing going. Julian Edelman was really the only guy that was making any plays on offense. And they went to the sideline, and Josh McDaniels literally drew up a play on the sideline that was not in the weekly install. It was not in the game plan. He literally just drew it up like in dirt, like you would in the backyard. Drew up a play. It was a delay release to Gronk. And they got Gronk out on the delay release, and he caught the football and turned up the field and gained some positive yards. And that was kind of the drive starter. And then they went to that 22 personnel with the two backs, and they flexed out Rex Burkhead on the outside, and they ran Haas 3 times in a row. Hit it 3 different ways, and went right down the field with the seam shot to Gronk being like the big play of the drive. And that entire drive, to your game plan point and like looking at what the defense was doing, that entire drive was an adjustment. Like that entire drive was, this is what Wade Phillips has been doing to us all night.
Let's counter it.
Let's counter it. Like, what do I have in my back pocket that I can counter it? And to throw shade at my own people, right? Like, that's the type of drive that Kyle Shanahan has not put together that Josh McDaniels did, right? And that's
because it's not in the spreadsheet.
That's what makes him great. That's what makes him a great play caller and a great offensive coordinator. And to that point, to the caller's point about being game plan oriented, if you take that away, like you're not maximizing Josh McDaniels. Like, that's what makes Josh McDaniels unique, is his game plan ability and his ability to adjust in game with play calling. And if you go into it and say, like, we're just going to do what we do and we're not going to adjust and we're not going to change anything, then you're not letting him use one of his superpowers. Like, that's truly one of his superpowers. So I hope that that's the direction that they're going to continue to go in. The run game question he asked and sort of like the RPO question, we're really early on to seeing some of that stuff. So I'm still waiting, like, to make a judgment on it. It's too early.
It's way too early.
Maybe we see more of that once we get out of the basic install period. But the one thing that I have been interested in from what they've done from a run game perspective is they've done a lot of different stuff. And
because you got to have all those different options in your bag.
Yeah,
That's
not
the
that
Josh McDaniels philosophy.
they didn't always, but like outside zone really wasn't their go-to play. They actually used outside zone a lot in the past in short yardage, like goal line, 4th and 1. They would run some outside zone, but they didn't run a ton of outside zone as like a base play, like 1st and 10 from the 25. We're going to run outside zone. They are traditionally a downhill run offense in this scheme. Now, he did it a little bit more in Vegas, and now he's doing it a little bit in these practices. So maybe this is what he's doing now, right? Like, there's a little bit of a West Coast flavor to it. You obviously have the quarterback that fits it. You have a couple running backs in Gibson and Henderson that fit it, that can run that kind of scheme, that one cut and go and get up the field. Not that Ramondre can't, but I would say from my standpoint, it's always good to have a back that's got some speed to the edge in order to really set up this type of play, because you have to get the defense to respect the bounce. Like if they don't respect the bounce, then they're just going to crowd the middle of the field and they're going to make you string it out, and it's just not going to look good. So if they can do it on the left side of the offensive line especially, they're going to have Will Campbell, who's a great athlete and can certainly, whether it's frontside seal or backside cutoff, like he can definitely block in an outside zone scheme. And then they might have, Cole Strange might be the guard. Jared Wilson might be the guard on the left side. Like those are two guys that can definitely specialize in reaching and second level combos and things like that in an outside zone scheme. And then you get Drake involved on those bootlegs and get him out of the pocket and on the move. All those things I feel like are good things for this offense potentially if they can get it to hit right. So we've seen a little bit more of that in these practices. Every once in a while, you'll see like a quarterback run, design read option type of play in there, but I don't think that there's been enough of a sample yet to get too crazy about how often that's going to be called. But I have definitely noticed just a wide variety of run schemes that maybe with Brady in the past, and it might have been Scar. Somebody's talked about this in the past about, well, when you have Brady, no offense to Brady, as amazing as he was at everything else, like you're not going to run a lot of bootlegs with Tom Brady, right? Like that's just not a strength of his. So if you're running a lot of outside zone and then you're not running the boot off of the outside zone, then you're kind of not running it, right? Like that's not the system. Like that's not how it works to the fullest. So they didn't have a ton of boots in the offense because Brady wasn't a runner and wasn't that kind of athlete. So they didn't really do a lot of outside zone, but Drake is. So again, to your point, maybe that isn't Josh McDaniels' right hook, but it's like something that he's got that's a compliment.
It's an option to have.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get back to the calls. Todd is in the car today. What's up, Todd?
I honestly have to say I don't know enough about Drake Maye's history playing in college and stuff to know, can he be a game plan type QB? Can he adjust and game from game, or does he need a set, series of plays in a playbook that is, what his standard is and where he's comfortable? So I'm a little bit worried about that. And I have one favor to ask the two of you. Rook used to have a draft, an NFL draft, before each season. You think you guys could run that? Because since he's kind of gone, that'd be kind of cool if you do that. So I got a request and a question for you. Thanks, guys.
What do you
mean by a draft?
Yeah, what do you mean, Todd?
Well, use the NFL.com draft option, and Matt can explain it. He'd email out to all the people that signed up for it, and then everybody would show up, and we all would draft our teams, and it was through NFL.com.
Oh, like a fantasy football league?
Like a fantasy football thing.
Like a fantasy football league, yep.
It was fantasy football, yes.
Okay, got it, Todd. All right, thank you. Sorry, we both are not big. Neither one of us is truly a huge fantasy guy.
I'm not. I did the punter league last year. That was it. I don't even know if we're doing that again this year.
Yeah, so I Jess runs a league, so I do her league because got to do that one. But I have one team, maybe two max, if her dad does his league again as well. But that's only because it's family that I'm doing. I'm doing leagues with them. But
my favorite Playbook had a league, and I guess the winner got to host with John or something.
Oh yeah, that is true. Yeah.
My favorite thing with fantasy is just sitting there on Sunday and watching all the scores roll in and watching Red Zone and like the live time.
Yeah.
I don't get the same thrill out of it just checking Sunday night and seeing how everybody did. And the reality is on Sundays I'm here, I'm working. I can't really do that. It just turns into me checking at the end. So that kind of took the air out of the balloon for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I feel the exact same way about fantasy, and then on top of that,
I am. If we do the punter league again, though, you're in the punter league. Yes.
No.
Yes. You are going to be in the punter league.
The other thing that I find really hard about fantasy, and I'm not asking for any sympathy whatsoever. I have an awesome job, but when you have to make those last minute lineup adjustments when inactives come out. We're just busy.
We're here, right? We're dealing with the Patriots.
We're doing, man. That's the thrill.
That's what I'm saying. We're doing other things, and over the last couple of years, there's been a couple of times where I've started guys that are inactive because I've just been too busy to notice.
When you're working on Sunday, you don't get to do fantasy football in real time. Like,
Yeah.
I just live vicariously through my friends' teams because they ask me for advice. I'm not always right. I don't know why they still ask me, but they ask me for advice, and I usually get, I have 2 or 3 friends that play pretty intently, so I know who's on. By the time we get to October, I know who's on their teams because they're asking me this and that. So I live vicariously through those teams. I root for those teams.
So what I did this past year, because this happened to me a lot over the last couple, especially since I started working for the team and traveling to every road game, and I actually just I have Jess do it. Like I gave her my password, and I was like, if I'm starting somebody who's like
but what if you're
scratch,
playing her?
I don't care.
That's an episode of the league right there.
If she wins, then we both win. So it doesn't really matter.
Remember when Kevin didn't Kevin hack Jenny's computer to change? Or no, Jenny hacked Kevin's computer to change the line of collusion. That's right.
Collusion.
That was such a great show.
In a bad way, She.
No, well, there was one where she thought she was helping him because she didn't trust him. It was like a running joke through the show that she knew ball better than he did, and she kind of did.
Yeah.
And so he found out, but I think he ended up winning anyway. I'm due for a rewatch, but
same.
That was such a good show.
I will fully admit that Jess does better in fantasy football than me, 100%. Because to your point about us not watching on Sundays, I don't watch a ton of the rest of the league all the time. Because
not until you have to when you're about to play the Patriots.
I literally watch the Patriots and I watch the teams the Patriots play. Those are the two. That's it, right? So we don't get Red Zone Paul. Paul. There's a running joke on the post game show that Paul watches Red Zone. While the post game show is going on, and we don't really get to do that. So I will admit I've lost my touch in fantasy football over the last couple years.
You don't go through. I go back.
I used to be really good at it 5-10 years ago, and now that it's my job,
it's a little harder.
Yeah.
So I'll go back though. NFL, I think it's NFL Plus has the 10-minute condensed, 20-minute condensed game.
Yeah.
I usually go back through on Monday and watch all the games like that. But even still, that's not a perfect encapsulation. That can all run together because you're watching. 10 of those, 12 of those?
Yeah, I don't even have the time for that because I'm watching the Patriots all 22, and I gotta take my notes and break it all down and inspect their film. So I just kind of bypass that. That's why I hear the complaints about Thursday Night Football and the product and stuff. I absolutely love Thursday Night Football because it's one of the only times where I actually get to sit down and watch football uninterrupted. So Thursday, and then sometime, I'm usually working pretty late on Mondays during the season, but every once in a while, if I get my stuff done, Monday Night Football, any primetime game, I'm in because I actually get to watch the game without working.
Well, we have more primetime windows this year, so there's more red zone Sundays. The past couple of years, it's been the bye week and Thursday Night Football, and that's it. And maybe if they had a 4:00 game, you got the first half of the 1:00 window of red zone. We actually have a few full red zone Sundays this year.
And I love 1:00 home game. You come home around 8:00 after the game once we're done.
I'm usually walking in right. I'm hearing Carrie Underwood right when I walk in the door.
There's nothing better than sitting down, knowing your day is done, and the hay is in the barn, and then you get in there, and Sunday Night Football is just starting, and you're like, this is great. So I love Thursday Night Football, and I'm in the minority of that, but it's totally selfish. There was one other thing that Todd brought up that I wanted that was more serious than what we were just talking about. Oh, the Drake Maye and him having the mental capacity to kind of adjust in all this. I would say it's TBD. I'm not sitting here saying that Drake Maye doesn't, because I don't know. I don't think we could really say that based off of last year because I just don't know what they were running last year. I just don't think last year was truly a McDaniel's PhD level offense, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to say based off of last year. And then he was in college before that. So it's not that I don't think he has that bone in his body to be able to be the maestro, to be the conductor at the line of scrimmage and change week to week. And I think he probably does have some of that. But based off of what we're seeing out of this practice, today and last week, there's a learning curve going on right now with him, and there's a timing thing and a rhythm thing going on with him right now that was really similar to what we saw out of him last year at this time and at the beginning of training camp. And we always go back to that Eagles joint practice territory of training camp. It did seem like a switch was flipped in that practice week where after that he looked like the better quarterback in camp, or the best quarterback in camp from that point on. And I hope we get to that point with him this summer, maybe sooner, but I hope we get to that point eventually sometime soon, but we're not fully there yet. And that's the one hesitation that I just have with this whole thing right now, is that he still looks like a guy that is learning and is like in a process and is trying to get through things and get through progressions and trust what he's seeing. And I just don't fully see him letting it loose just yet. And that has to come before we start worrying about, oh, the Raiders are like a big quarters defense and these are the quarters beaters we're going to put in this game plan. And like, you can't get to that point until that's like step 3 and we're on step 1. Like, you got to get through this part of the off season and part of the install before we can start talking about game planning. And 1 week we're playing a zone defense, heavy defense, so we're going to run these plays. The next week we're playing a post safety man defense, and so we're going to run those plays. Like, that's all great in theory if we get there, you know? And I just don't know if we're there yet. Certainly not in terms of this time of year, but I'm also not sure if this is the year that's going to be fully unlocked. It's a concern of mine. It really is. That not that he can't do it, but that
how long it's going to take.
Yeah. Like, how long are we going to be sitting here 2 weeks into camp and still waiting for the switch to flip on? It will flip on. I have no doubt about that. But just how quickly can it flip on for him is a big question. Did you have a thought on that at all, or?
No, you pretty much covered it.
All right. Let's get back to the phones. Rio is in Texas. What's up, Rio?
Hey, gentlemen.
Hey.
How you doing this afternoon?
Good.
Good. I've been wanting to call in since the draft, but unfortunately the timing hasn't been right since you have the later show today. It gives me an opportunity to.
Awesome.
I just want to make a comment and then ask a couple questions. First is for Barth. Kyle Williams gang, represent.
That's right.
Good call.
First time I called in. You guys love that guy, so cool
he is real.
That. Yeah. First question, did you see that clip of last week during OTAs where Williams caught a long pass and then Stefan Diggs was celebrating with him, and Diggs was out there, looked like he wasn't wearing a brace or anything on that repaired knee, and the knee looked pretty swollen, kind of messed up. Have you guys seen him in person to see, how he's progressing as far as that injury goes?
We haven't. He hasn't been here for practice opening.
No, that was the one practice just based off of photos that we posted to the website that we know that he was at because of the pictures, but there was no media at the practice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And my second question is, I made this comment during the draft when they drafted Joshua Farmer. Are you guys concerned at all with how light they are up front on defense? I had asked about the Seattle cover 3 looks, and I wasn't really talking about the back end that day, although that's what got focused on. I was talking more about the 4-3 under that they played, where they were able to, roll out that bigger, strong side defensive end, a guy who could potentially 2-gap and kind of, get some beef up front, because I just keep going back to, like, how they played against the Jaguars last season, and, you got, 17 or 18 run plays in a row, and they just couldn't get off the field. Do you see them, having the schematic versatility and the personnel to be able to actually adapt if a team decides they want to try to run down their throat?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rio. Thanks for the call. I have been small C concerned about the size up front for a while now. Now, Tonga's a monster. He's a big dude.
Yeah.
Barmore, when he's healthy and he's right, is also a big dude. But I still feel like what's their best run defense front? Now, Landry's a really good run player out on the edge. He's a good edge
in
setter.
In the middle.
Yeah, through the middle of the defense, and especially because they've gotten a little bit smaller at linebacker, too, by choice. They've gotten smaller at linebacker. I do have some concern about teams leaning on them. Now, it's going to be only a certain amount of teams are stylistically prepared to do that, right? Like, I don't think every team, especially in the modern NFL, is built to take advantage of that. but they have Buffalo twice on their schedule. Buffalo's kind of become that a little bit, certainly more so last year than in years past, where, with James Cook, like, they can be a bully. Like, they can run the ball down your throat in Buffalo. Baltimore's on the schedule, certainly can do that. Vegas week 1 with Ashton Genty might try to do that, right? Like, that might be what they might build their offense around. So I hear Rio's point, in the Seattle 3, they had the designated pass rusher, the Leo or the Rio role that was truly a designated pass rusher in their front. That role, based off of what we've seen at practice, they've used Keon White, I would say, mostly on that side of the formation or that side of the field in that type of role. Landry, they like Landry as a run defender, and rightfully so. He was a really good run defender even last year when the pass rush numbers dipped a little bit. So could they use like a true 3-4? I guess 3-4 is the wrong way to call it. Like a true, like to Rio's point, like a two-gapping end. Maybe, but I do think that Barmore is that when he's right. So maybe they end up kicking Barmore a little bit further outside if they have to. But it's something that is a concern to me, a small C concern right now, is right up the gut. Like, I'm not talking about the edges. I think they're going to have the athleticism and the playmakers outside with Landry and Keon White and Anthony Jennings probably mixing in a little bit there on the edge. But our team's going to be able to just line up under center and run it right at you. And if they do, are you going to be heavy enough, sturdy enough to stop it?
Yeah, we've talked about this. Like, are they maybe a defensive tackle short? Now, they have some guys that are smaller that are skilled run players like Joshua Farmer.
Or even like Milton Williams.
Right, we'll see where Milton Williams wasn't really used in that role in Philly. We'll see how he looks in that, but I would not hate them adding another nose tackle just to add another big body in the middle.
Yeah, it's a fair question there by Rio. All right, Randy is in Providence. What's up, Randy?
Hey, guys. How's it going today?
Good.
Hey.
So a couple quick questions for you. Number one, you guys have mentioned a couple times, spanning different podcasts, not just this one, but Wilson playing guard potentially. And I'm just wondering if you guys know if he has any history at all there. And why do you think that if you want Wilson and Bradbury on the field at the same time, that it would be Wilson you'd prefer to move as opposed to Bradbury?
Yeah. What else you got?
So 2 more quick ones. Do you think this is going to be a run-heavier offense? I think back to like the early days of Brady, where it was like they were mostly asking him to just not make mistakes, right? He would throw for like 200, 220 yards all the time. I remember I used to like take him on my fantasy team and be so annoyed at it. But he wouldn't throw the interceptions, it was just no mistakes. And do you think he's going to kind of want to slow play Drake along like that and just say, look, we're not going to ask you to throw for miles. We're just going to ask you to not throw to the other team.
Yeah.
And then my last one was just, what sort of patience do you think Vrabel is going to have with Diggs' kind of social life, I guess? Because like his girlfriend is Cardi B. That's not like a tame celebrity. A lot of pictures and stuff like that are bound to pop up. And he's bound. This is the second OTA practice. He already got a question about one, right? It's going to happen. What sort of patience do you think he's going to have with that?
Yeah, all fair questions, Randy. What was his first question? That was a good question. I can't remember.
Oh, boy.
We're bad today. It was hot
just
out
drained from sitting out in the sun.
It was a good question, too.
Hang on. I'll go back and find it.
Okay. Just to answer backwards, because I just totally spaced right there. Sorry, Randy. I would say that the patience thing with Diggs is a good question. I don't think that I'm that worried about it yet because of the type of coach that Vrabel is, though. I think Vrabel is the type of guy that can get people to buy in, that can get people locked in, and I'll just, in Diggs' defense, I'll just say again, like he looks really impressive in these workout videos, right? And it looks like he's really attacking rehab and doing a good job with that. So as long as he's coming and doing his job that he's being paid to do in terms of playing football for the Patriots, and he's not, getting into any legal trouble off the field, like I have to imagine that none of this has really been made into a huge deal just yet. internally.
He's Stefan,
and that's just a guess.
He's Stefan Diggs. He's a celebrity.
Yeah.
Like, he's a beyond sports celebrity, and you know what you're getting into when you sign a guy like that.
Yeah.
So the first question, it was going. So we've talked about if it's going to be Wilson and Bradbury on the field together.
Yeah, that was
it's
it.
Wilson at left guard. Why not move Bradbury? Because Bradbury's a true center.
Yeah, Bradbury's been a center going all the way back to college. His 7th year in the league, and he's been a center for all 6 of his previous seasons. He's also smaller.
Yeah, I was going to say, does he have the size to play guard?
Yeah, much smaller player than Jared Wilson. Jared Wilson does have some guard in his background. He, in college at Georgia, he was a 1-year starter at center, but he started at Georgia as a guard and played a lot of guard in practice for the Bulldogs in practice, and so he's cross-trained at both positions. Wilson's natural position is center. Like, that's his long-term position. And I do want to talk about David Andrews here in a second as well. I don't want to forget about that. But that's his natural position. But there might be a case to be made, and I know you've made the case of let's not mess with it in terms of his development, which is also a fair point. But there just might be a really strong case to be made that for the 2025 Patriots, the best position for Jared Wilson is left guard so that they can have all 5 of those guys together. You know, Campbell, Wilson, Bradbury, Onwenu, Moses is probably on paper their best 5-man combination, and the only way that happens is if Wilson plays guard.
Right.
So that's the thought process there. But I agree with you from a standpoint of messing with his development. I think that can be a fair point too, if that's the way to decide.
I still think if Wilson's good enough to play, he's good enough to play center.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we get back to the calls and emails, I do want to talk about David Andrews. I don't want to forget, so let's do it now. David Andrews, the Patriots just tweeted that David Andrews is going to have a retirement press conference on Monday. He's officially retiring from the NFL after a great career here in New England, 2-time Super Bowl champion. How many times was he a captain? Like 5, 6, 7 times team captain. I don't know.
6.
I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but represented the organization just as well as any player possibly could. I would say in my time covering the team, it's a 3-horse race, but specifically, I guess, just to me, from the guys that I got to know a little bit better, Devin McCourty and David Andrews were the consummate of consummate pros that I've ever been around.
Those two and Slater.
Yeah, Slater would be the third one, of course. And I would put David Andrews in the same exact category as I would put those two guys, as just like not only a perfect leader, but also just like that's a football player.
Yeah.
Like that's an NFL offensive lineman. The toughness and the attitude that he brought. He was always like a guy that would stand up for any of the quarterbacks, whether it was Tom Brady or Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi or Drake or whoever. Cam Newton. Like he stood up for all of them. He was always tough as nails. He was always clutch. He had big blocks and big moments and big sequences as a Patriot, obviously as a 2-time Super Bowl champion. There is no doubt in my mind that David Andrews will wear a red jacket someday. He will be a Patriot Hall of Famer. I 100% can almost guarantee that he will be a Patriot Hall of Famer. He needs to wait 4 years until he can get on the ballot, and then there obviously could be a logjam still going on, as we've seen already with Edelman and Vinatieri and Gronk coming up and other guys coming up as well. But he to me will be a red jacket guy. Not before long, and it'll be cool to send him off on Monday and have that press conference.
Yeah, I know some people roll their eyes at the Patriot Way thing because of the way the last few years have gone, but you talk about what the Patriot Way is at its core, and when we talked about that when they were winning, right? The Patriot Way, what is the Patriot Way? It's David Andrews.
Yeah.
David Andrews is the textbook Patriot Way. Undrafted guy, undersized, came in here, worked his ass off, proved he could be a good football player, improved, took coaching, took accountability, became a leader, became a core member of the team. I would make the joke when they wore the throwbacks, like the guy in the helmet snapping the football, that's David Andrews.
Yeah.
Like everything that their run is embodied by David Andrews.
I give him a ton of credit. Obviously, the winning's great.
Yeah.
Super Bowl rings are great. I give him even more credit for how he handled himself the last few years.
Yeah.
Because I am sure, and he's spoken about it, has been extremely difficult on him to go from a perennial Super Bowl contender to a team picking in the top 5.
Yeah.
That cannot be easy. And he every time, he was asked to be available, he was available. He was one of the first guys to the podium after all these losses recently. Guy. He was always one of the first ones up there, oftentimes still in like pads, like game pants, and like basically in uniform still, and come up to the podium and do his press conference, and always a stand-up guy, always answered questions, always took accountability for the team's performance. He was, out of anybody that's been on this team post Brady, like he was pulling on the rope as hard as you possibly could have pulled on the rope. And unfortunately, over the last couple of years, just not enough guys pulled on the rope in the right direction with him. But it wasn't David Andrews. Like, he was not a problem. It was not him that wasn't putting in the effort. It's a bummer that his career, 9 years in the league, is ending on this note. Injury last year more or less ended his career. It sounds like. He's talked about that a little bit on his own podcast. So to have his career end like that, obviously the Patriots cut him earlier this offseason. The idea was probably to give him a chance to catch on elsewhere. I have no inside information or whatsoever on whether or not he even had any calls or had any opportunities, but he has opted to retire. So that retirement press conference will be on Monday afternoon at 3:30. We are expected to be out at OTAs that day, and then they're going to have the press conference after that, so it's going to be a jam-packed day. And I do believe that Patriots.com will carry it live, so you'll be able to watch it on Patriots.com and on Patriots YouTube as well if you want to watch the press conference. So it should be. We've only covered. I've covered. We did Devin McCourty's. Yeah. Slater didn't do one, so I haven't done a ton of them.
Did Edelman do one?
He did, no, because it was COVID.
Oh, he like Zoomed with us.
Yeah, and he did
in the fall.
We did the video with him on the field where he announced it. And the Foxborough Forever stuff and all that. But I think Devin McCourty might be the only guy that's done this, like a true retirement press conference in this vein since I started covering the team.
That's another one, too. You mentioned it, Edelman and the Foxborough Forever stuff.
Yeah.
One of the few guys from the run who did, and McCourty, too, one of the few guys that didn't go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And if you remember back, I think was it the Ravens or the Dolphins that we were all sure like he was gone after the 2020 season. He misses the 2019 season with the blood clot. Plays in 2020, which nobody expected coming off that blood clot and COVID.
Yeah.
Played that season. And then in 2021, he was a free agent. He was supposed to be passing the torch to Ted Karras, and that was one of the big things that offseason was you have a rookie. And not that anybody had anything against Ted Karras. Ted Karras is a great player. Ted Karras ended up having a great career for himself. But I remember one of the talking points that offseason was, all right, they're probably going to have a rookie quarterback coming in. Boy, it'd be great to have a guy like David Andrews. It's going to be a shame when he leaves. And then at like the 11th hour, all of a sudden, to the point where Ted Karras had resigned to like a starter contract. Everybody thought he was going to be the center. Then Andrews comes back and tells you what they thought of him.
Yeah.
That they had paid Ted Karras like a starter and still took Andrews back. And Ted Karras ultimately ends up starting that year because they moved the offensive line around a bunch over the course of that season. But David Andrews wanted to come back. They wanted him back that bad. I think the 2021 offseason speaks a lot to what David Andrews meant to this team.
Yeah, I can't stress enough just how impressed I was with David Andrews post Brady. Like, it's one thing to be on board and be a great teammate and be a great locker room guy when you're winning and you're going to the Super Bowl every year. When that turns in the way that it did, and the team goes to picking in the top 5 and winning 4 games a year, and he's still the same guy and he's still a stand-up dude, and even being around the team last year while he was injured, like he was out there at those practices when it was like 30 degrees out. The team had like 3 wins, and he's out there trying to help his teammates get better as a coach, essentially. He's done some podcasting. He's done some stuff with you guys, right? Yeah. He's been on the air a couple times with you guys. I don't know if media is his direction. I don't know if coaching is direction. I know he's talked in the past about not being able to be too far away from football. Like, he needs to be in football some way just to scratch the itch.
Yeah.
Post-playing career. Is that media? Is that going into coaching? We'll see. It was a great career. 9 years, 2-time Super Bowl champion. David Andrews is one of my personal favorites. Had some great stories too. Just a great guy, great Patriot. All right, let's get back to the phones. Mark is in Connecticut. What's up, Mark?
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call as always.
Great.
And I love the rant that you guys just went on about David Andrews. I mean, he just embodies, like Alex was saying, the Patriot way first guy to the podium every time. Just a true professional, and I love him.
Absolutely.
The other couple of things real quick is Jalen Polk. Do you think he's going to turn into a Tyquan Thornton, N'Keal Harry? Like, is he still nursing an injury right now? Is he practicing? I'm just worried that, it's another second-round bust out of him. And then the other thing is I love the fact that Kendrick Bourne is, reviving his career again with Josh McDaniels, because we all know he knows the system well, and I'm really rooting for him.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Mark. So Jalen Polk is, we mentioned this earlier in the show, but Jalen Polk's here. He's participating limitedly, that word?
He's limited.
He is limited in these practices, and during positional drills, during individuals and things like that, he's participating. But then when they go to 11 on 11, he's doing routes on air on the side field while everybody else is doing team. So he's not fully cleared yet for team. It doesn't seem like. He is coming off that injury. We should really confirm this, but I believe it was a shoulder, right?
Sounds right, yeah.
At the end of last year. He ended the year actually on IR. Now, it was one game. He missed week 18. He missed one game on injured reserve.
Shoulder injury, yeah.
Shoulder injury. So I assume that he had some sort of surgery or something like that on that shoulder.
Yeah, he was in a sling in some of those off-season videos.
Yeah, so he's coming back from that. In terms of bust, the tough thing about Jalen Polk, I don't want to write anybody off, and I certainly don't want to write off a guy who's going into year two after year one was really just not a great setup for a rookie receiver. Now, with that being said, there is not a lot of history of a receiver putting up, 11 catches, 12 catches? 12 for 89,
right?
Yeah, something like that. And then going on and blossoming into a great receiver, even a good receiver. There's just not
12 for 87. Two touchdowns.
There's just not a lot of, that could be one game.
Right.
Right? Like that, there's just not a lot of precedent for that in terms of it panning out. Now, maybe there's a little bit more precedent for him then going on to just being an NFL player, like a guy that's can contribute. But in terms of him being like a big-time contributor or an impact player, I'm not ready to close the book, because I wouldn't close the book on any player that's as young as Jalen Polk, but we're in dire times. like we're pretty unrealistically projecting forward if we're thinking that he's going to go on and be like a high impact receiver in the NFL based off of his rookie season. The two things working for him: one, horrible setup for any rookie receiver last year. Like that offense, the coaching staff, all of that just wasn't set up for success.
And they've admitted it as much.
Yeah.
Ellie Wolf's admitted as much.
The other thing that I think is working for him is that, for better or worse, a lot of his struggles as a rookie were mental, I think, more than physical. Once he didn't get that heel in against Miami in week 5, he just kind of forgot how to play football for a little while there. He was just not playable. Like, it was just a mental hurdle that he was not able to overcome. So hopefully with an offseason, the more time that's passed from that, like maybe he can get out of his own head a little bit about all these different things.
I mean, you hope that kind of the reset is what he needs, and a lot of it was mental last year, but it's so tough to turn around. The fact that he is limited right now, like he's playing catch up. He's already playing catch up, but then the fact that he's behind in terms of this injury and he's not out there with everybody else makes it even tougher. So you hope he's good to go by the start of camp and he can really compete. But there's so many areas in which, again, he's playing catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to some of these emails. We have a couple good ones here. So this is a good one here from Stevie Steve. So I'm assuming his name is just Steve. So it goes Steve. He asks, how do we think that the Vrabel defense will defend the tight ends, especially week 1, looking ahead to Brock Bowers in week 1 with the Raiders? It's a good question, because they had a specific like tight end stopper role in the Belichick style defense, where whether it was Kyle Duggar or Patrick Chung in his like career renaissance, second life there in his career, whatever the case may be, that for a long time it was that like cover safety role that played man to man on tight ends. For the Titans defenses with Vrabel, like they were a little bit more zone heavy, a little less man to man, so they were a little bit more in terms of zone distribution, like that's how they would cover tight ends, right? You just have guys' bodies in the middle of the field and zoning guys off and things like that. I still feel like, though, we've seen quite a bit of man-to-man coverage, as you would expect with Gonzo and Carlton Davis and the players the Patriots may have. So I wouldn't be surprised if it looks similar and you have some of those cover safeties again, whether it's, a Duggar, Craig Woodson potentially competing for a role like that. Alex Austin maybe, as like an inside corner, like a slot corner, but Bowers is like more of like a flex receiver than he's more of a slot receiver than he is like a true tight end. So maybe like that they cover him in week 1 with a corner, if you want to get specific to Brock Bowers. But I think it's going to be pretty similar based off of what we've seen. Now we've seen very little, but that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, I mean, Craig Woodson probably makes most sense as the tight end stopper in general. Do you want to throw Brock Bowers at him in his first NFL game? That might be where they go Austin or they go with Peppers, and it'll probably be multiple. I mean, he's their top receiver. He'll be double teamed, and he'll get a lot of attention. But I think ideally Craig Woodson slots into that role.
Yeah, I agree. And he did a little bit in college. Now he had his ups and downs in that role in college. I remember Gatson, the Syracuse tight end. He had a game against him.
Well, Gadson's another one of these guys. He was a wide receiver when he entered college.
Yeah,
like he's
so
a
he
pure
had a big
receiving
game
tight
against,
end.
You had a couple big catches against Craig Woodson. So I'm still weary if that's really a strength of his game. But in terms of getting on the field and like the opportunities that might be there for Craig Woodson, it feels like those opportunities are better suited. Duggar and Peppers are going to be Duggar and Peppers. They're going to play their roles. They're going to be starters. They're going to be full-time players. So if he's going to get on the field, it's going to be, potentially could be him being able to lock down tight ends. It's like either him being able to lock down tight ends or him playing center field. Like those are the two ways that he really has a path on the field. All right. This is a question from that one Boston fan. He has a Twitter account. I don't know if you've seen his Twitter account a little bit, but he asks, how big, I guess to rephrase this, how frequently will the Patriots use trick plays on offense this year? I think this is a good question because McDaniels has always been a trick play guy. He loves trick plays.
More than last year. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I can give you a percentage. One a game, one every other game, something like that, but they'll be a feature.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. Like he's a big trick play guy. Yeah. Whether it's I call a flea flicker a trick play. I don't know if it's truly a trick play. It's kind of maybe in a slightly different box, but
I think it's a trick. It's a common trick play, but it's a trick play.
So he's a big flea flicker guy.
Yeah.
He's a big double pass guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the pass the ball out to the receiver to then throw it back to the back in the screen and the flat is like a McDaniels trick play staple.
Yeah. You screen out right, you pull the offensive line out left, and the wide receiver throws back left.
Yeah.
Who is the throwing wide receiver now, though?
So Kendrick Bourne's done it a little bit. I don't know though if there's
none of them really have quarterback backgrounds, do they? Polk, Baker,
no.
Kyle Williams in high school.
Yeah,
I think was a quarterback, so maybe it's Kyle Williams. Are they gonna have a rookie?
Do you know who
that?
has thrown the ball? And I know we're not really supposed to say this, but not this in practices this year, but in the past. Hunter Henry's thrown some passes in practice. Now most of the time is goofing off, but like
it's those Arkansas tight ends. Remember AJ Derby?
Maybe he's got a little bit of an arm. I don't know.
Maybe that's tougher to do though, because they rarely put him. Well, maybe it'll be different with Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
How much did Henry line up out wide in 2021? Because
not a ton.
They're going to know if Hunter Henry's lined up on the boundary. Hey, something's coming.
Yeah. Usually it's
unless the Patriots run plays to set it up, and maybe that's something we see more this year.
Yeah, so all their double passes in the past, for the most part, I shouldn't say all, it's just off the top of my head, the ones that I remember, they used to use Gronk as like a blocker, like as like a personal protector basically for the thrower. So they put the Edelman outside, they put Gronk on the line of scrimmage. Edelman would like take a 5 steps back to have it be a backwards pass, and then Gronk would literally pass it in front of him and just stand in front of him. You watch the touchdown pass to Danny Amendola against Baltimore in the playoffs. Gronk is the one that is basically playing left tackle for Julian Edelman. So most of the time that's a tight end. So maybe that would more be Hunter Henry's role than actually throwing the pass.
Hunter Henry 58 snaps in this out wide. Now he did play a lot in the slot. It's actually career high slot usage for him in 2021. So on the Baltimore one, your point, Edelman lines up out wide, but he actually motions in, and by the time the ball is snapped, he's a slot receiver. So,
a little short motion, and then the other. So they like that play, right? Obviously, true double pass, like a pure.
I'm sorry, I just sneezed it in the mic. I thought I muted my mic. I hit pause on the computer. I'm so out of it. Zoe did that earlier today too, and I was thinking man, I hope I don't do that. And I hit pause on the computer.
I think everybody will forgive you.
It's it's gross.
So you had the Edelman double pass back to the screen side, right? So you have that's the line of scrimmage play where they throw it out to Edelman, then they throw the screen across. Then they also have just a straight double pass to Amendola in 2014. That's just a out to the receiver up the field double pass. Then the other thing that they built in to the screen one is that they would have the receiver on the screen side run a deep over, and he actually hit Philip Dorsett for a touchdown in Philadelphia on the downfield throw.
Was that the one Dorsett got hurt?
I don't know if he got hurt, but he caught a touchdown. It was the only touchdown of the game for either team.
Yeah.
And it was an Edelman touchdown pass to Philip Dorsett. And McDaniels, Josh did a podcast with Julian Edelman. It must have been Games with Names or one of the Edelman shows. And they talked about it. And I guess that route is just a clear out to clear out that side, and it's really not an option. You're not supposed to throw it. The only time you're supposed to throw it is if he's wide open. There's literally nobody covers him and he's wide open. But this wasn't that. This was a throw. He threw the ball to Philip Dorsett like a quarterback would. And Julian Edelman said that he remembered the night before the game, they had a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And he jokingly threw.
I know the clip you're talking about now.
He jokingly threw the pass to Dorsett, and McDaniels was like, "You better not do that in the game." And then he did it in the game the next day. And I think the quote was "You maverick" or something like that. McDaniels was pissed that he actually made the throw, but it was for a touchdown, so can't be too pissed. He threw a touchdown, only touchdown of the game. That was a rock fight. That game was brutal. This is a good Catch-22 question here to wrap it up on, because this could take us a few minutes to get through.
Okay.
So this is a very long email from Robert, very well thought out. Robert, I apologize that I can't read the whole email, but I will summarize. So the summarization of this email is about a concept that you and I have kicked around many times on the show about an NFL developmental league and having some way in the off season to allow NFL players to play in the spring leagues as a way to develop their skills.
I have a whole plan for this.
So the UFL is going on right now, correct?
It is. Their final week of the regular season is this weekend.
The ratings have been awful, if I'm not mistaken. No one cares.
It's not as bad as some of the other spring leagues, but it's not it's not the NFL.
Not a ton of people are watching.
No.
So the way that this is mutually beneficial, there's obvious benefits for a league like the UFL to bring in NFL players, because that would then get us sickos to watch, right?
Well, and it becomes part of following your team, because if the Patriots have a player assigned there, you want to see what he's going to do. Is he going to make a push for the roster, especially the quarterbacks? I'll say this about the UFL, it's not as bad as a whole. The football is not as bad as people make it out to be. There's not nearly enough quarterbacks, so the poor quarterback play brings everybody else down.
Right.
The number of overthrows or bad reads or guys just holding the ball, leading the sacks, picking up protections. If the quarterback play was better, the league as a whole would be a lot better.
So that being said, the concept that we've always kicked around, and let's be clear, this is not Drake Maye going to play in the spring league. This is, I know he's not on the team anymore, but this is Joe Milton going to play in the spring league.
Even he might be
good?
Yeah, it would be a guy who finished. It probably would be a guy who finished the past season on the practice squad or not on a roster,
your guy, Ben
a future
Woolridge.
Contract guy. Well, he's a rookie, so that's different. I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah,
but you probably would need some bigger names. So I think probably something written into the contract where the player would have to agree to it that hey, we are allowed to ask you to go play in this league.
So there's a lot of benefits from obviously the spring league side in terms of money and revenue, but the other the real advantage I think for NFL teams for this is that once you get into the season, especially, there's just not a ton of reps for these backups, and especially at positions that are very technique based, like offensive line. everybody talks about how the offensive line play around the league stinks, and it's a developmental issue.
It is.
It's a pipeline issue.
It is.
And it's just across the league, teams are having trouble finding enough talent on the offensive line. Now, I'm not suggesting that this would solve all your problems, but it will, in theory, increase the talent level of the offensive line, the pool around the league, and the floor of the talent around the league. If you would allow, and we're talking about practice squad guys, and maybe on rare exceptions like back end of the roster guys that didn't play at all in the NFL and were like healthy scratches all the time or whatever the case may be the year before. But this allowing that to happen, I think, would be huge for quarterbacks. It'd be huge for linemen. Yeah. And other positions too, there are always benefits to getting live reps. You can't replicate live reps, and especially once you get into the season, it's really difficult to replicate live reps for backups because they just are. All the starters are repping all the time in these practices, and there's not a lot of contact to begin with. A lot of these practices, especially late in the season, aren't even full contact practices anymore because guys are banged up and stuff like that. So the coaches pull back. So this would allow, good examples in the past that we've had, are like guys like a Trey Nixon, right? Who's trying to make the Patriots team year in and year out, can't break through. If he goes to the UFL and plays live football in the spring, does that put him in a better position to potentially make the Patriots roster in the summer?
And then it's more content, which the NFL is all about, because now we're following this thing and we're talking about Trey Nixon. Hey, Trey Nixon had 800 yards in 10 games in the UFL.
Right.
Like, should we be noticing that? So I would take it to another level. I think the spring league, first of all, you'd have to shift it.
Yeah.
This is my idea. You don't do it this time of year. It goes from the week after the Super Bowl to a couple weeks before the draft. That's what I would run. And you have 3 groups of players. Street free agents. So these are just guys that don't have a team. They're veterans. They can play. The second group is players assigned by NFL teams, and you would figure out what qualifies a player who can be assigned and how they'd get split up on the different teams. You could also, by the way, do that with coaches and maybe give some young coaches experience. But, maybe NFL teams want their players to play for a certain coach. They send him to a certain team, or you send a guy close to where he played in college.
Right.
Because that's good for the development league, because they'll get some groups. And then the third group, you make for certain players coming out of college, you have to declare for the draft. You can't do this and go back to school, but you make it an alternative to the Senior Bowl combine circuit.
Okay,
so
good idea too.
A young guy, like, you wouldn't have a top pick doing this, right?
Right.
But a guy that's on the fringe. So Ben Woolridge would be a great example of this. Undrafted player, doesn't have a ton of tape. What's the combine really going to do for him? He didn't get invited to the Senior Bowl. No, he's going to go play in this league. And now we get to watch him. And imagine if, especially, there are some bigger name quarterbacks that aren't looked at as like draftable guys. Perfect example of this. DJ Uiagalelei, right? Nothing was happening for him at the combine. He wasn't going to raise his stock. If he plays in this league and he lights it up, should he be drafted? How high is he going to be drafted? Blah, blah, blah. Something like that, right? They ultimately went in the first round, but guys like Johnny Manziel and Tim Tebow, right, would have been things for this. So I think they should do that. And then that's why you have to have the league end before the draft. And there is some precedence for this. Was it Stiggers? I forget his first name. The corner. Quantez Stiggers.
Oh, yeah.
Who was in the draft last year.
Yeah.
He didn't play college football. He was supposed to play college football, and the pandemic happened, and he had some stuff in his personal life, and he dropped out. And he ended up signing with the CFL. And he didn't do really much of the offseason program or the pre-draft process. He was just in the CFL. And the Jets drafted him.
Yeah.
So, and I think he actually played like a good amount last year. So you could... there is some precedent. There was another corner too a few years ago who did this, who got drafted, I think, of the XFL at the time. You let college guys play in this league to try to up their draft stock, who maybe need a little bit more of a showcase. It's nothing against the Senior Bowl, but the Senior Bowl, it's limited reps, and there's a lot of good players there, and it's just one game and 3 days of practice. Some guys might need a whole season. You give those guys an opportunity to maybe show what they can do with a little more room.
I just think there's a lot of advantages from the live rep aspect, especially for offensive linemen. I'll go back there. Like, if you want to improve the talent of the offensive line, around the NFL. You're not going to do that with guys that are blocking against air or against, like, in these non-padded practices and things like that. They need live reps. They need real reps in games. And you can get those in these types of spring leagues. Now, the obvious question would then be, like, injury concern. And I think to that point, and this happens with rookies that are unsigned, you sign a waiver, and basically you get treated like you're on injured reserve. You get placed on injured reserve by your NFL team. The waiver that you sign says that you will be compensated like you would be if you were on injured reserve during the NFL season. And it's basically just an extension of that. And that way there, if, I hope not, but like if Efton Chisholm were to go do this next year and he were to get seriously hurt, hopefully not if that ever happens, but if it did, then he would be covered, in terms of compensation. So it wouldn't be like he would be out of a job.
On the same line, and Chisholm would have been a guy that could have gone and played in the league this year and probably would have gotten drafted if he could showcase against some professional talent. The guys we're talking about assigning to this league.
Yeah.
You need to do it if you want a chance to make the team. So it's not, I don't want to get hurt and risk my contract.
Right.
You don't do it, you're probably not going to have an NFL contract.
Yeah, like the couple, a lot of them are rookies that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. But like even like a guy like Tyrese Robinson, who we talked about today, got some run at left guard. Like if he had been able to play in the spring league, up until this point, like maybe he would have I wouldn't be dismissing it. Like maybe he would have a real shot.
Well, so I'll give you another one. Vidarian Lowe.
Yeah.
The Patriots trade for Vidarian Lowe during the 2023 season. He doesn't play a ton. Then they go back last offseason and, okay, this guy might be our starting left tackle.
Yeah.
You assign him to the league, and you would have some sort of deal with the coach that, hey, we're assigning him to you as a left tackle.
Right.
You're going to play him at left tackle. That's where we want him to develop, and he could have gotten a bunch of left tackle reps. Chuks Okorafor, same thing. A guy that signed for not a lot of money. Now, would he have gone through with it? I don't know, but like in theory, all right, this guy's a right tackle. We need him to get reps at left, right? We're going to assign him, and you tell the coach in that league, like, you're playing him at left, and the league would agree to it because they're getting these players they wouldn't otherwise get.
So we have to wrap, but I want last point on this. I think the last like frontier for this, and you mentioned it briefly, if you can find a way that, let's just say it's how many teams are in the UFL right now?
8. I think the rumor is that it might be 9 or 10 next year.
So 8's a little bit much in terms of this. But just in general, if you say like these two teams are running like a Shanahan West Coast, and these two teams are running like a McDaniels EP system, like, old school McDaniels. And then these couple of teams are running like the Andy Reid version of the West Coast, like the West Coast spread or the West Coast college. And that way there, when you start, and the same thing on defense, like that way there, when you start assigning the players, like the Patriots can send their guys to like the EP team. Right. And then, the Miami Dolphins can send their guys to the West Coast team. And then you're running the system and running the scheme with the verbiage and all that stuff that those players are then going to be running.
You could probably line that. I don't know that it would be that formalized, but like you're going to have, if the NFL, so there's two ways you go about this. I think, if I remember correct, in NFL Europe, there was like preset, these NFL teams are linked with this Europe team.
Yeah.
So maybe they do that, but if you're just choosing where you send players, NFL teams and NFL coaches are probably going to have relationships with a lot of these coaches, and they're going to be able to say, I want my guy going to this team because I know that he's going to get like the coaching that I want him to get.
Yeah. So
they actually, it's a good collection of coaches. I'm trying to pull the list up.
I think that we have this concept nailed. We've been talking about this for like 5 years. We have this concept nailed down. So Roger Goodell, UFL commissioner, if you want us to come, he's the commissioner of the league, or is he just like the figurehead of the league?
He owns it.
Oh, well, that's a little different.
I feel like that kind of makes him the commissioner.
If you want two people that have thought more about this than anybody else, the two of us have this nailed. Like, we know exactly what needs to be done. We know exactly how to get there. Maybe we need some suits, some lawyers to come in and help us like figure out the injury settlements and all that good stuff. But we have this concept nailed. So we're available. We will come in and we will tell you, and we will lay it out for you and tell you exactly how this can be done. And to a point you made earlier, we are the sickos that on a random day in March when the spring league is going on and a Patriot player that was assigned to a team, we will talk about it. We will write about it.
You put some of the guys I like in the draft in it. By the way, they don't. There is no commissioner.
Oh,
best I can find.
Okay,
So,
well, we're available.
The Rock.
We are available. The
And
Rock.
I
we
forget
are
his.
available.
He has a business partner there. I forget her name, but it's 2 people.
All right, so that does it for this week's show. We'll be back.
Oh, the president is a guy named Russ Brandon.
There you go.
Russ Brandon.
Come on, Russ. Come on, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. We are ready to go here. Next week, we'll be back on Wednesday. We'll be back to our normal time at noon. No practice that day, so we will be back at noon, and we will talk about Monday's practice. We'll talk about David Andrews' retirement ceremony. We'll touch on minicamp, which is not next week, but it's the following week. And then that's a wrap on the off-season program, and then we all go on vacation for the summer until training camp. So that's the schedule for the next couple of weeks. We'll have you covered throughout all these OTAs and minicamp right here on Patriots Catch-22. For Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Hey, this is Alex. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you really want to help us, make sure you like us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure you follow us on the New England Patriots YouTube channel to see this show and everything else we do here at the Patriots. Thanks a lot.